In advance of the budget, your government billed it as, quote, transformational, generational, and a sea change. The increase in capital spending, for example, beyond what was already promised, only amounts to about 0.2% of GDP. And the savings, on the other hand, are only at a level about 1/3 of the scope of what the 1995 budget brought in, which was heralded at the time for its work on that side of the ledger. How does any of that, Minister, amount to a sea change?
Well, you got to look at what options the government could have considered when you're trying to achieve savings so you can make bigger investments to help grow the economy. We certainly could have taken the approach that was taken in the mid-90s, but that would have required us to slash transfers for things like health care to the provinces. We instead have made a decision to invest more, including in provincial health care infrastructure with this budget. What we wanted to do was focus on the programs that we observed not to be having their intended impact. Each of us in Cabinet was asked to go through an exercise to assess which programs, which policies were costing taxpayers money, but not delivering the outcomes that we wanted to see. Those programs will be phased out, some through organic sunsetting periods. There will be some attrition, some early retirements offered to folks in the public service. But what it's done is it has freed up capital that allow us to make investments that are going to help grow the economy. Investment tax credits for those who are going to bring a business to Canada. Tax deductions for those who are going to buy a new piece of equipment to scale up. Investments in infrastructure where they're going to put people to work in the short term, but create a stronger economy in the long term. The impact that this budget is going to have over the next decade or number of decades is extraordinary when you look at the opportunity to build the kind of economy that will generate productivity and revenue for generations to come.
Minister, I'll put to you again, though. What exactly is extraordinary about using infrastructure spending to stimulate the economy, about taking tax write-offs to incentivize business investment? Both of those things I can remember former Prime Minister Stephen Harper introducing. And as recently as 2018, the Trudeau government, of which you were a prominent member, also introduced the ability to write off different pieces of equipment that was actually broader in scope and more immediate than what you are pitching. So again, like, what is extraordinary or transformative or generational about using old ideas and just pitching them as something new?
Well, I would disagree that these are simply old ideas being pitched as something new. You can look, for example, not only to the fact that you might be using a tool that certainly has existed before with investment tax credits, but using it to tap into new and emerging sectors in the economy, whether that's critical minerals, whether that's adopting sovereign infrastructure when it comes to AI, to ensure as the trade disruptions that we've seen globally have an impact on our ability to control our economy, to control the data that helps power the economy. We're not just putting more money into things, but ensuring that it builds a level of sovereignty to the economic decisions that we're going to be able to take for the next number of generations. In addition to these major investment tax credits that will attract new industries, when you actually see the deduction allowing people to immediately write off the full value of investments, certainly that's been done in different ways before, but not necessarily in the same way for the same industries to the same scale. You're also seeing an unprecedented investment really outside of the great wars of the previous century in the Canadian Armed Forces that are not only going to offer a pay raise to men and women in uniform, but it's going to create a defense industrial strategy to ensure that more Canadians are put to work in good paying jobs when we make those investments. The list of examples continues, but I don't want to exhaust our time in the conversation on this topic alone.
I certainly do take your point on defense spending because it is markedly more significant than anything we've seen previously. If I put that aside, though, and look at all the other things you're announcing that you say will have a material impact, really, I guess, 5 years out or more on Canadians' lives, don't take my word for it. I look at the analysis from Desjardins, which said if Canadians were hoping for a transformative or generational budget, they will be disappointed with the Government of Canada's budget 2025. The Bank of Montreal, much of the stimulus in the budget consists of measures that were already known, so it is unlikely to cause a sharp revision of economic growth forecasts. The picture in your government is what we're doing here is so unique, you are going to see the economy grow in ways that you haven't before. The Bank of Montreal is saying we're not even going to revise our forecast based on what we saw in this budget.
Well, you look at some of the examples of the game-changing policies that are in the budget, and they may have been announced a month ago, but still form part of the strategy going forward. Take, for example, the new approach to home building. Certainly, I was involved previously with policies designed to help build more homes, but the creation of a federal agency through Build Canada Homes to ensure that the government is able to act essentially as a developer, leveraging all of its tools at once, backed by a $13 billion capital investment, is a different way of doing things that I think is going to have a positive impact, not only on housing outcomes, but on productivity that's going to drive change within the sector, embracing more manufactured homes. It's this kind of different thinking that allows us to take control of the economy here in Canada in a way that people did not feel was under control over the last few years, particularly coming out of the pandemic, that sets this budget apart from many other similar efforts or different policies that have been put forward in previous years.
But Minister, you were in charge of housing through those previous years. Why now should Canadians listening tonight trust that a new agency will do what you were unable to do?
Well, last year, we did move forward with some of the most ambitious housing policies, and you don't have to take my word for it. There's plenty of housing experts who would validate that, that represented the largest housing investments that we've seen in a number of generations. But we have the opportunity to take things a step further without undoing some of the good programs that were put in place previously. Actually having the government pool together, and I was part of the conversations, believe it or not, that led to the creation of this, this agency before the last federal election, in conversations with our now Prime Minister Mark Carney, to actually figure out how we can best leverage all of the resources that the federal government has at its disposal. When we have access to federal land, when we have access to low-cost financing, when we have access to grant programs to help non-market housing put a roof over the head of the most vulnerable, we figure that we can in-house have a greater impact on that key part of the sector that's not necessarily going to benefit from improvements in market housing. Politics is a sector where you have to focus on continued improvement. Canadians would not accept that you rest on laurels of years gone by. They want to know how you're going to address the challenges that we're facing today and continue to scale the efforts, even in areas that are having some positive returns.
Okay, I'm out of time. I appreciate your time as always, Minister. Thanks for the interview.